You may have heard the phrase or the word Gondwana or Gondwana land. I thought this was brilliant. I thought this, he took advantage of his work and he made it a startling scientific discovery, which I think pretty much nails continental drift and plate tectonics as important. That was continental drift. Where do you get plate tectonics? Well, you look at the Pacific Rim and the Ring of Fire, as it's called, and you just start doing soundings, and pretty soon you realize that some things are moving and others aren't. And the places that have earthquakes are the most common places that have a fault. Okay. I think I'm going to leave the rest of that discussion for the handout, but let me go back to glaciers. And you'll understand why I suddenly stopped talking about glaciers. If you look at the tip of South America, just going to cut that off there. And you look at the tip of Africa, it turns out, and also if you look at Antarctica. Remember, the Arctic is all ice, but Antarctica actually is a landmass. What you find is the remnants of glacial scraping. We have glacial till here about 2 inches under whatever topsoil there might actually be. When I asked someone to help me dig my garden, they went down about 2 inches and then they just hit this stuff, which plants don't like, so I had to build everything up. But Antarctica is also a place known for snow and ice, right? So we have a glacier that heads this way, for instance. It leaves scrapings like that. Now, I need to take an art class. Now what you find is South America, sorry, apologize to anybody who might be offended by my drawing. Now what you find out is that Antarctica is still down there and it still has scrapings that direction, but the scrapings in the other countries have the same thing. That is to say, they have the same markings. And so this sort of nailed down the fact that these three things were connected. And the other thing is that they rotate. So you find some very interesting things as these continents separate. They also shift, rotate, and move. And when I say move, I mean on a geological scale. That is to say, we're talking millions of years. But one of the things that is interesting, and I wish I had a globe here, is that India used to be a diamond-shaped piece of land way down near Madagascar or lower. And it raced, geologically speaking, north and ran into the Eurasian continent. Only it was going with such a power that it pushed up all the Himalayas, which I think is fascinating, but that's just me. Okay, islands and animals. I'm just going to say this very briefly. There are two kinds of islands. One which used to be attached to a continent, and one which has come up because of volcanic eruptions under the ground or earthquakes or something else that pushed them up. Animals, the flora and fauna of what are called continental islands, that is something that's split off, like Madagascar, for instance, or I can't think of a good example right now, but they will have species that are very similar to their nearest continent, but they may have evolved after the separation and look different. So you can find things in Madagascar that you don't find anywhere else, but you also find things in Madagascar which are similar to the things on the coast of Africa. The second kind of island is like an atoll, for instance. The Galapagos, for instance. How do plants and animals get there? Because it's 600 miles to the nearest coast. Well, they get there by swimming, floating, or flying. And that really limits the animals and plants that can get to the island. So you'll find that islands that are not connected to a continent will have specific animals and plants. One, the plants will often be plants that send their seed through the air or through bird droppings. Secondly, the fauna, you get birds and not a whole lot else. The iguanas on Galapagos Island are a complete surprise, and it's been hypothesized, guessed, that they hitched a ride on basically a log boom. And the thing that's fascinating is recently at a different location, a non-marine iguana, that is one that stays on land because the ones in Galapagos are unique for being marine, but this was a land iguana, was indeed stuck on a raft of vegetation and arrived at an island. I can't remember which, but that was phenomenal because it was a modern event and it showed how could this have happened, and it showed that quite clearly, I think. So, oceanic islands usually have animals that reach there by flying, swimming, or floating. Birds, insects, bats, small mammals and reptiles which can float. And I think I'll stop there. There's an appendix in your handout about how to date things. One of the things that's handy is to know that some volcanic eruptions put dust worldwide, and if they have a unique signature of what is in the debris that they blow out, you can use that to date things that are above or below it in that layer, which is fabulous. I'll leave you to work on that. We're going to do an experiment today, which is a little bit long, but it won't be that long. I think I showed you at the beginning of the class, the triangle but in the experiment, you have to realize that triangles can be similar. They can have the same angles and the same ratio of lengths, but they can have different sizes. You have to go back to your geometry class.